1405. Let me talk a little bit about 1405. So 1405 came to me originally from Seline Karakaya office. It was a bill that he was going to carry at the time, but he also had to deal with an election, and he said, his staff actually reached out and said, hey, Senator Ochoa Bogh, would you mind carrying this bill? We were going to do it, but we can't do it. And I said, sure, no problem. I'm going to need help. I'm going to be there to help you. So I carried SB 1405. The way that we provided the language and what we tried to do with the language, where is my... So 1405 came about because there was a concern that AWAC did not have the capacity, was not going to have the capacity or the ability to continue enforcing the CC&Rs in place, and that they were in need of help to do the job. And I said, okay, I get CC&Rs, I get HOAs, I get that whole feeling because I also worked as a realtor. I've had my license for 20 years. So I said, sure, no problem. So what is the proposal? Well, the proposal is that the local utilities company would be able to take on that responsibility and work within the confines of the CC&Rs to help them. They already visited the properties because of the work that they did, so it wouldn't be too much of an additional responsibility for them to take on the responsibilities of the CC&Rs. I said, okay, so the association is in agreement. The association, or the utilities company is in agreement. I get, okay, no problem. So we submitted the language. The language, by the way, was submitted and modeled after several other cities who were also doing the same, or attempting to do the same thing, or had done the same thing. Basically turned it from a small association to a utilities company. So there was already language in statute that would allow us to help that in order to take place. Now, something that was misrepresented when it was published in the local newspaper was that it automatically did the transfer. Well, in the state of California, you can't automatically transfer those rights and duties without your consent, without the people who are impacted, like yourself, to be able to choose to do that or not. That's where your representation comes in. So that is state law, and it's overseen by LAFCO. LAFCO has certain criteria that you have to meet in order to be able to have a vote. By the way, signatures, you have to all agree. You have to agree to do that in order to go on that. The concerns, and mind you, when we submitted the proposal to Ledge Council to develop the language, they also had to update the CC&Rs because they were incredibly outdated and had a lot of language that did not meet today's required language, and it had kind of racist components in it that were, relevant to that age and time, but no longer it discriminated, and we needed to take that language out. So we took that language out. It updated the language. So I did all of that, and what happened is that when it was printed in the newspaper, it was implied that automatically happened. Well, it can't happen. It can't happen without having town halls, without having the people meet, without letting them know what's going on and having those conversations and having a discussion. Now, there were a couple of concerns that would happen if we didn't do the bill, which means that there was going to be a dissolution of the association, of AWAC. Now, come to find out, so let me go back a little bit. The bill went completely unopposed. It was supported by everyone that was a stakeholder at the time, and including LAFCO, who testified, including LACA, who said, nope, the language works, it's within the protocol and the procedures of be able to transfer these duties, we're good with it. They testified in committee with regard to the bill. There was no opposition that we knew of up until June. And I think that's when we first heard there were concerns. There was it was published in the newspaper. I'm sorry, not the newspaper, the local magazine. And it was implied that it actually automatically transferred. And I remember reading the article thinking, that's not what the bill does. And at the time, we have field representative, by the way, that we have quite a bit here today. My field representative, Sid, actually right here, is geographically in charge of this area. And they published his phone number and his name, and published my personal cell number and my name, which, by the way, I share quite often. I'm a realtor. I give out my number, and it's out public anyway. It was published on there, and lo and behold, we received literally many, many phone calls, both Sid and I, and what's that?
All at 6 a.m.
At 6 a.m. He said all at 6 a.m. I went throughout the day. But I was also doing our end of session, which meant that we were on the floor voting on bills literally until very, very late at night. And so my phone just blew up, and I'm like, what is wrong? So on my drive home, I had to do a conference over in Sacramento, speaking to our young women up there. And on my drive home, my husband was driving, and I started listening to the phone calls, and I realized there's something going on. And it's all about SB1405. And I called my team, I go, are you guys getting these calls? Sid, he's like, yeah, Sid's phone's been blowing up, and I said, okay. So what I did is because it's about 6.5, 7 hour drive from Sacramento back home here in Yucaipa, I literally responded to every single call and message that I received, because I'm that kind of a person. I called them and I said, so what is the concern that you have with SB Freegas? Because it doesn't do what, because just clarify with me what you think it does. And what they expressed, I haven't seen the article right away, I just had the phone calls. Once they expressed what they thought the bill did, I corrected them. I said, ma'am, sir, let me explain to you, that's not what the bill does. It creates the process by which it can happen, because prior to that, you can't do this without proper protocols that has to be followed and overseen by LACO. And so I explained, and all of the response, and I believe I probably had, I don't remember how many calls right now, but in any case, I responded to everyone, explained the same thing over and over again, and every single person left the call and said, I did not know that, thank you for informing me, and we'll keep that in mind. So there wouldn't be any taxation without representation when it comes to that, unless you agree to have that changed. So right now, the other concern, so let me explain the process really quickly on that, so that addresses that. So one of the concerns that we heard from our constituents, and we met with a group, I believe at the end of June, sometime in June, literally about a year ago around this time, we met with the first group that was opposing the bill over Zoom, and we tried to explain the process. In that Zoom meeting, I was present in that Zoom meeting, I learned that there were concerns about whether or not AWAC was, what's the word I'm looking for? Legitimate? Well, I'm sure the group that was on the Zoom would say legitimate. Whether or not they had fulfilled their duties in an upright manner, whether or not they had the financial capacity to inform, and whether or not they had the information from all property owners, and whether or not they had the financial means to communicate with all property owners. So there was a concern that they would not have the financial means, nor the employees to be able to make that happen. And so I actually held back. I said, well, quite frankly, I'm a Republican. I don't have to carry bills. My goal is not to pass a whole bunch of bills. If there's a problem with this bill, I have no problem. And I do this all the time, by the way. Not all the time. I've done it a couple of times. Where there's concerns, and when I see concerns that have not been resolved, usually I say, you know what, let's hold this bill and bring it back next session so that we can have time to continue the conversations. So one of the concerns that was the ones I just explained. So I was going to pull back the bill. At that time, the local board of realtors, one of the representatives called me and said, so I understand you're pulling the bill. And I said, I am. I'm going to pull the bill because of these concerns. We need to have more conversations and address the concerns, see, you know, where the money's going to come from to be able to reach every property holder, to see, you know, and how do we get the information from every property residential holder that is in AWAC. And she said, well, the realtors actually have been discussing the fact that they can help in this on that front. And I said, well, I need something in writing. Because, you know, as a realtor, if it's in writing, it doesn't exist. So as a realtor, I said, well, I need something in writing that actually says that you folks are committing to providing the funds, if AWAC doesn't have the funds, to make sure that we reach every single property owner so they understand when these meetings are happening, that we reach out to every single property owner so that they know that this is in the process of being discussed, and that you folks, realtors, have the ability to get every single, because that was the other concern, they would have the capacity to know where every single property owner lives and be able to get a hold of that property owner. Because not every property owner lives here. Some of them live down the hill. So they provided the letter, and I said, okay, so that checked. That they will provide the means by which we are going to get a hold of the concerns that the opposition had, and so we're going to be able to do that. So that got covered. So based on that, I said, okay, we can continue moving forward with the bill because we knew that every property owner would be communicated, reached out to, in the process of doing these town halls. Now, how many town halls have to be in place? I don't know off the top of my head as far as the LACSD requirements on that end, but I do know that all of that has to happen. And by the way, LACSD, because of the protocol that they have, has to check up all those requirements before they will approve that transfer. And that transfer can't happen. As part of that transfer, it cannot happen without having those town halls. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Oh, well, first of all, I really appreciate that you're here, and it's really great to see a female senator. But I have some really serious concerns. I could see some of the errors that happened along the way. Essentially, we were never informed. The realtors did not reach out to us. I think if you ask everybody in this room, nobody wants this legislation. And I know it was well-meaning on your part. I know that you thought, people told you that property owners were represented. But I have to tell you, they were not represented. Nobody wants this. The management of AWAC needs to go back to the homeowners of the different tracts. It should not be with quasi-government organization. It can't be. I mean, it's essentially a blank check. And I know it's a vote, but it should have never, ever gotten this far. And I think if people had been honest with you, they were not honest with me either, because I went to the initial meeting at the water district where they were talking. They were actually presented it saying, do we want to take this AWAC? I spoke very much against this, and I was promised that rates wouldn't go up. I was never told there would be legislation that would end in increased taxes. Never ever told that. And they said, their words were, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So in other words, continue on a volunteer basis. So they duped me, they lied to me. I think they misrepresented what they said to you. Because I could tell you're a good person, you're very well-meaning. But it's not right what they did. And I don't support the bill ever even be the bill. There was no, I mean, because you said, let's see, you support local authority. This is taking the authority away from the homeowners and putting it into an organization, a government essentially organization, because that's kind of what the water district is. So it's taking authority away from us. So I'm opposed to the bill, period. And I mean, we pay a huge, I think we had increases in the double digits for the last couple of years, the water district. So their budget is out of control. And I think they're looking for a way to augment their budget is really what I believe. And so it's you know, it just should have never been legislation. And so, and I'm wondering, can you rescind it or can you pass additional legislation to really, you know, control this? You know?
I hear you. So what you're saying is that you believe that this bill automatically transfers that responsibility right now and is going to hold you responsible? No. But you believe that this bill automatically taxes you? No. No, not really. So you are upset that the bill creates the process by which this could possibly happen?
No, I'm not upset that the bill even got to the governor for some signature when there was no input from the majority of property owners. If you take a vote right now, you will find out nobody wants this. Nobody, I mean, maybe a few people, maybe the realtors want this, but realtors, I never heard nobody did want this. I mean, we're living, that's why you're very brave to come here today. And I appreciate it.
So when you do what you feel is true and honest, you don't have no fear. And I have no fear because I don't think I acted in ill will. I was actually trying to step up and help AWAC, who I understood to not have the ability to continue to enforce because nobody was stepping up to volunteer on the board, first of all, and to have the revenues in order to continue to hire more people to do the work that they needed to do. So that's what I was trying to do. And you did not know. I know you. Okay. So let me give you some hope in that you still have hope right now to accommodate the concerns that all of you have. This is how you are able to express your concerns right now. And that is that moving forward, as these meetings are occurring, you don't have to agree to transfer. I mean, you can object to that. You say, this is the vote. You can sign, you can petition, you can inform everyone, and not do it. You don't have to do it. It can stay the way that it is right now. But then that's going to leave you the responsibility to decide what you're going to do with AWAC. Is it just going to dissolve with no more CCNRs to enforce the community standards? Well, you can do that. You can do that. You still have that option. You still have the option to let it dissolve, because I believe that if that'll renew something, there's something that's happening in 2025. If it doesn't happen, it gets nullified. It just goes away. Now, yes, ma'am.
With all due respect, you mentioned in the beginning that you're a Republican, and you're deeply involved in AWAC and CCNRs. Yes. I mean, you're having this conversation because you wanted to protect a private entity without knowing a whole lot about it, without having the town halls understand what we think about the matter. We as taxpayers pay for the time that you're spending on this, on the bill, the time it's spent in legislature and everything involved with that. For a private organization, the government has no business in. So the very premise of that bill, and the fact that we're even having this conversation, is, I think what these ladies were challenging, and that's not being heard, a true Republican approach would have been to stay out of it. If a private organization doesn't have the support of its people and will fail as a result, it should fail. Why interject? Why get involved? And along the way, give a pseudo-government entity way more power than the original organization had. If you read the bill, LACSD will have more authority, unencumbered, than AWAC ever had. So when we read the bill, those of us who understand what we read know exactly what's happening, and it's frightening. It is frightening for any entity to have that kind of power, to be able to do this gentleman, come back to me, get money from me to pursue that gentleman, and then do it to the next person, the next person, the next person. Whether our property owners are home or not, the minimum bill they pay is $106 or something like that. Even if no one's home. And those go up 10 to 20% every year. I don't think that this community wants LACSD to quote, and this was from a meeting, have dozens of people on the ground watching what we're doing. Having a police state is not the idea. We don't want a police community. We don't want a police state. AWAC exists maybe for a reason. I don't know, but that's between AWAC and the Arrowhead Woods property owners. Not you, not LACSD, not anyone else. So let's go back to you being a Republican. Help me understand how your checks and balances are aligned with the government getting into our business.
And you can understand. This bill, as I said earlier, only allows the process for the communications to begin because it was requested and it implied that that was needed by your association, by your CCNRs. But let's just hear it, by your association, which is AWAC, your representative. Is that okay? Sorry.
And I'm the second, so I'm very
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was missing here. I apologize. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Senator Ochoa, thank you for being here and hear the voices of your constituents. Perhaps maybe it would be worthy to explain what you see the value proposition is to the Lake Arrowhead community property owners. I again concur with many of the words that were spoken here in terms of representation as a property owner here. There was no vote taken. Our voices weren't represented appropriately. So I'm curious why it is that it's now on the floor for the third time and ready for passage. Why is it that we weren't brought into the process? And I agree, why is there a public utility being used to represent members of a private company? If they fine, where are those revenues going to go? Is it going into the hands of the public utility? Are those funds being returned back to the Arrowhead Woods community owners? So please explain what you saw as a value proposition to the people you're representing here, so we can better understand your motivation for this bill.
Absolutely. So, as someone who's worked in real estate and lives in an association with CCNRs, and understanding that Arrowhead Woods, Arrowhead Woods, they're just so used to saying Iraq. There was no conversations happening. Nobody was stepping up. And so, in my opinion, I'm not overstepping. I know, exactly. So this bill, it doesn't automatically change it. This allows for the meetings to take place, for you to have a voice, and for you to decide whether or not this is something. It's not going to happen if you don't.
I think what's different in politics today versus, when I was growing up, by the way, as a Republican, is that we just didn't enable the kind of in your life, in your face, in your home, in your room nonsense we have today. And for any government entity to be in my property rights, involved in a private association and its needs, crosses every line no matter what party you're in. You are acting as an enabler for something that maybe should have failed And now it's wasting the collective time of this community, and importantly you. But you have so many other things to deal with that are so much more important than this. Why? Because a handful of people can solve their own problems and came running to you for help. I understand the running to you for help, but the CCNRs require that the property owners resolve this. Not for you to interject and maybe inadvertently, maybe not, I don't know, expand these powers to a point where they make me uncomfortable. I would sell my property and not want to be a part of this. And I live here full time, it's not my vacation property. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal when you hear, Catherine and others say, but we have dozens of people who could be, on the ground and watching and monitoring. They don't want to be watched or monitored. I mean, that's not what we want, and I know there's a lot of associations in our state, in our country right now. I, for one, live in Arrowhead Woods because I did not want that kind of, oversight over very, very specific things. Neither here nor there, but for the water utility to become a pseudo, HOA is beyond anything any of us could have imagined.
Would any of you folks be here if you had not known about the bill? Sure.
Just like we weren't informed until after the fact, this was all done under the table. They discussed it, they decided, they brought it to you, they brought in the grim realtors. None of us knew any of that until after the fact, and you were, let's say, a useful vessel for them, and I don't blame you. And now hearing what your position is, I think it's terrible. This is exactly what they did. This is exactly what they did before, and they should be held accountable. And I feel that you could really call them on it, or we could. And if there is a vote of Arrowhead Woods property owners, the problem is you're not allowed to vote for a San Bernardino County bill for office unless you are a registered voter in San Bernardino County. I just moved here full time. For 59 years, I was registered in LA County. I just registered in San Bernardino County, and I am a Republican, and I just feel that you were, to put it mildly, duped.
Can I just speak up right now since everybody wants to have a conversation? My name is Crystal Upton. I'm the executive director for those who aren't aware of AWAC. So I'm just going to speak because a lot of what's being said is not actually fully transparent, once again. I do not know the East Valley or the Rim Valley realtors being involved in this. I understand that they had something to do with helping push this through, but we've never been contacted by any of them. And I run an escrow company. So, pursuant to this moving forward, I am very clear that there is no vote that's going to happen anytime soon. Effective Friday, we have, as a board, put together a letter that it is not going forward. So I'm just letting everybody know that right now here. I did feel that because of the information that was being sent out in the community, if anybody was around for the prior meeting at the beginning of last month, and saw how beautiful that went. I felt that it was, and everybody, no, because I'm doing construction today, I apologize. So I do apologize for my attire, but I didn't know this was exactly happening. I actually got notification that this meeting was happening.
Oh, by the way, this is not supposed to be about 1405, that town hall officially on that end. This is just a town hall where I'm hearing the concerns about the bill. Just FYI.
No, I know, but I know that that's probably why 98% of people are here, is because of their concerns. Am I right? Because I told you guys I would listen to your concerns. I said that first and foremost, and that I am trying to read that the organization, and that there are internal For one, we're an organization, we're a nonprofit, we're not an association. We are not a member run or operated association. We are a nonprofit. So I just want to make that very clear. For two, there have been no discussions with the Rim Board of Realtors or the East Valley Board of Realtors. I understand they can't give information. That's privacy policy violations. Like that's violating the law. You know, so I don't know where that information is being dispelled from. We are working, I'm speaking then.
You have speak to the Realtor Board at the hotel here, and you were speaking there?
Did I speak to? Yes.
You didn't see other people with the didn't you?
Then I'm not gonna. I did have a conversation and I did do a presentation at their request. My presentation was the same exact thing that I have had email conversations with Aaron and Ted. I have made it very clear why we went and presented this idea to LACSD. When we presented this idea a year and a half ago to LACSD, it was not as the bill was written, okay? It was not to be taken over by LACSD. It was a partnership. I'm the one who changed that verbiage before the meeting. They still were calling it a partnership. It's not a partnership, right? I told you guys I'd be honest. It's not a partnership. It is an acquisition. It's not even a merger. It's an acquisition, right? Well, I don't even think the bill really says it's a partnership, because as Lee states, if you read the bill, it's very clear what the powers of the bill states. As others have stated here, and I agree, I own property in the woods, and I'm not just here speaking on behalf of the AWAC. I've taken this on to make it a better organization for you guys.
Thank you, Chris.
And then I hope I can walk away and leave you guys with a better organization, right? I have a job. I run an escrow company. But that, just one minute later. But I made it very clear, we reached out to LACSD because AWAC does have water rights to these properties. And so it seemed to make sense at the time that a water company did take over, and nobody wants AWAC. We're a liability. So how to find middle ground? And then that was never fully stated. That is what I stated then at the RIM board. In fact, there was two statements I made at the RIM board. A, please give out transparent, honest information. That's all I asked. Two, the reason why I felt that this was done and the reason why our board presented it was because we had something to offer for them to take. And so it seemed in that, the way the bill was written, we had no language to do that, we had nothing to do.
The language came from Ledge Council, by the way, from previous transfers in there, so legislative. And I hear that you've been holding up for 15 minutes or so. I promise you, we're going to take that gentleman first, and then we'll go to you.
But look, I'll leave it at that. What I just basically wanted to say to just state it, this is off the table. So this bill doesn't just go away. For myself, the board has made a unanimous consensus. The letter is drafted, but everybody who was out of power at LACSD was off yesterday because they have every other Friday off. I was unable to deliver that.
Senator.
I agree. They can't. They can't. Our board has to.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Senator, we need some clarification here, and I think it's a two-part question. For those people who have been here for a while, we need to know, number one, are you legally constituted organization? That's number one, AWAC. And number two, who owns the rights to the waters on our property? And by joining with this other organization, are we allowing the taxing entity to enter into our association? So the two-part questions: are you legally constituted organization that operated on those premises, or were you just an appointed in 1960 member organization? And the second part, who owns the rights to the water on our property? Will it be the new organization, or will it be us as the homeowners of the property? That determines the direction we're going to go with a small group of neighbors. Okay.
You're asking a legal question. If you go and read the CCNRs on each of your properties, if you live in Arrowhead Woods, there's a very one-line sentence on all of them. I brought them to Garen and Ted. I I was very honest and showed, because I, again, run an escrow company up here. So I
Doesn't
do know.
mean that-
It has, right now, as it stands, AWAC has the water rights to all of the lots that we have jurisdiction over. If another entity such as LACSD acquires AWAC, their board now runs AWAC. Okay, AWAC is no longer a separate, it's not a partnership. LACSD's board now operates that committee. That's the vote.
Forgive me, that requires a clarification.
Okay.
Whether it's AWAC or the new organization, the water rights belong to us. The homeowners and the property owners of those
Other
properties.
legal lawsuits that people sue over water rights. And
I
mineral rights.
understand, but we need to clarify that with this bill, because that could also slip by.
You
And we
don't
don't
say-
realize it.
And the bill, part of the clarification of the water rights, because that was brought up to my attention this week. So on behalf of the water and the property rights, I know it's legal, but so there was a question whether or not this would actually go back to, would be transferred. It doesn't get transferred. It does get transferred, but they cannot do anything with those property, with those water rights without your consent. You folks have to decide. Two things that I looked into and I asked because my mind is a problem solver. I said, well, if that's the case, then we need to have an amendment to the bill. By the way, the bill can be amended to, we can't get rid of it, but we can amend it to accommodate the concerns that you have. So the concern with the property rights, we can add language, and we've already reached out this week to the Ledge Council to see how we can include or amend the bill to clarify the language as to what it actually does with the property rights. So we can take care of that. That's not a problem. I guess we could. I guess we could. So, in all honesty, though, here I think where we have a difference of opinion, because the bill only allows, first of all, yes and no. Here's the problem: that many of the CCNRs that you have in the current CCRs, they're outdated. They needed to be updated anyway. So we did that. We did that. Hold on. I know you're upset. I know you're upset. And I apologize. Can I get you some food? No, I mean that. I think it this way. You know, I'm Latina. If you're mad, I'm going to feed you. If you are sad, I'm going to feed you. That's just what I do. I'm going to take care of you. I promise. But we'll have the discussions. You folks just heard from Lisa. Lisa? Crystal. You just heard from Crystal. Nothing's going to happen. But what it has done, though, and I appreciate, and this is sometimes what I hear many of my colleagues say, is that, you know, we bring legislation forward so that conversations can be started. And I think this bill has actually allowed people to be engaged who have not been engaged before. And what the organization needed is they needed to have involvement. Nobody was really caring or paying attention. And that, so I asked that before, and it was like,
by the way, I can say that personally, my last like 6 months, so.
but I'm sorry, what did you say?
I still do not want this kind of involvement, it's not really proactive involvement. It's just not what the organization wanted or needed. And I'm glad that when that conversation with all of us, I would rather have that in a much different way. Why don't you ask for what you need?
With the previous,
A lot of things in right now is not what I was. I'm just saying, why don't you ask for what you need? I haven't, and I can know the director that I just got done this position on, so as director, I haven't.
Crystal, how long have you been involved? When did you get on board?
I joined the city 10 years ago.
But how long have you been actively engaged, Crystal?
February, well, end of January, that's so storm. So I told everybody, my commitment, and anybody who talked to me personally outside of this on the property, my commitment has been to the community and to the building after the storm, and so it's board. And it's been a very large effort. And making things right. And having recognition that this is not the conversation, or the way I've ever liked to have a conversation with
it's been brought to my attention that people have been speaking out, and there's people who have been really very polite in raising their hand and waiting, and people aren't. So we're gonna start taking turns, and if I acknowledge you and I give you, and I'll try to follow, my team help me out with the different people out here. So I promised that gentleman to speak, and then I said I would follow up with you, so here you go.
Hi, my name is Ted Hike. I'm sitting next to Darren Barghani. I'd just like to bring, and I have lots of things to talk about and lots of questions. But first, I'd like to say you're a remarkable individual. You have accomplished an enormous amount. You stride between Republican and Democratic every time you speak, and you make a point of separating that out from governments, from law itself. Your heart controls much of what you do. And everyone here who sees you realizes a simpatico with you, realizes you have enormous feeling and compassion for people. But Senator, with all of your accomplishments, and everybody hesitates saying it, you have been misled terribly. You were told that the realtors or somebody going to give notice of this meeting. No one gave notice of this meeting except for Darren Barghani sitting next to me. No one. He paid the $200 for the notice to go out in an email. It was not sent by AWAC. It was not sent by LACSD, a $20 million a year organization.
Non-profit.
But
Remember that.
What I wanted to say is, and then I know that all of us have various points you want to bring up, and we've thought about them, and we don't want to do it at a random basis. So maybe you might call people who might like to speak and let them put it all out there at once. I haven't said anything here at the beginning because I was afraid I would be seen as a ringleader. And I'm not a ringleader. I'm interested in only one thing, which you are too, the truth. The truth. And then how do you deal with it? We are all here operating on a different perception of what the truth is. You talk about a bill that is not the bill that I read. It really isn't. You talk about the bill, you keep talking about automatic. The original bill had no provision for anybody in the public to vote for anything. The original bill was set up that AWAC would request LACSD to take over. Then LACSD had meetings. It was supposed to have public meetings with LAFCO and have the public express their opinion. Then, no matter what the opinion was, and I repeat that, this is LAFCO rules, no matter what the opinion was, LACSD, run by a board of 3 people, could vote it into effect. So that all of our futures in relation to the enforcement of CCNRs, which incidentally were not recently updated, they were updated 60 years ago. No one has updated the CCNRs because you would need a vote of the property owners to do that, and not one of us has been asked to update CCNRs. But anyway, to get back to the other thing, 3 people on the LACSD board, one of which is Mr. Borman, who is the lawyer for AWAC, 2, Steve Keith, who runs the biggest realty company here, and then everybody else sort of falls in line. That is what people are afraid of. Duly afraid of. So let's let everybody express their own opinions and knock it off. Let's just do it orderly, one at a time, and ask what you think, what you feel. Because we all have as much feeling as you do, but we're working on a different sense of what the truth is.
So, just so everybody understands, the intent of the bill, when I read it, and the legislation that was proposed, and the Ledge Council came back with the language, intent has always been to allow you to have the conversations and be able to decide on whether or not you wanted this adjustment to occur. That has always been the intent. My commitment was, and I spoke that to any and every time we've had any of the meetings that we did with the student meetings that we did with this gentleman here, was that my commitment to you was to make sure that we oversaw, to make sure that those town halls to discuss whether or not you folks wanted to happen was going to happen. That was my commitment. Even though, we birthed the bills and then we move on, I did not. I said, no, I'm committed. I'm committed to all of you to make sure that your voices are heard and that the process is followed so that it doesn't automatic, so that you don't feel disenfranchised. That was my commitment. This town hall today is not, by the way, not specific to SB1405, but I am hearing the concerns and we're going to continue the conversations. And it's my understanding that my representatives, I have 10 committees this year, just so you know. So my team is very much my ears, my mouth, and my hands when I'm not around. And listening and understanding and getting back to me and letting me know. Sid has been closely, and was last year, as well as my legislator, Scott Terrell, following the bill throughout the time, and knew and was committed to making sure that the language reflected what the intent was. We have not spoke this year yet, but I know that we've been watching, and my field rep, Sid, where's Sid? Sid's right there. He's been giving me the updates on the last town hall that occurred. And I asked him, this is where my mama brain, my personality comes my mama bear. I asked him, I said, were the realtors involved? Did they help reach out to the community members, to the residents, to let them know that it was happening? And it became aware to me that one, I didn't realize that the meeting had occurred, did not realize that the realtors had not helped and engaged in helping reach out and communicate because they had their financial resources, and as a board they voted to be able to allocate the money on that. Which, by the way, I'm supposed to have somebody here. Where's the gentleman that wanted, oh, right there. Sir, did you want to speak? Please. So, this was my follow-up in trying to be held accountable to this bill because I believe in transparency and accountability. And so my commitment was, and I said to my team, I said, no. I said, we're supposed to have the stakeholders in, they committed. I said, let's make sure that the process continues in an appropriate manner, the way that it was promised to them. So that is my continued commitment to you, is to make sure that I oversee and make sure that everybody who said that they were going to be at the table to facilitate the conversations, to make sure that all of you are involved, are informed. So with that, yes, please, sir. Go ahead.
I think a lot of people were worried that this would be a tax. That's the thing that's come up. And a lot of the properties in Arrowhead Woods are an overlay, and our taxes for our real estate, you get a CLAWA tax of $800 a year.
Not just standby, we pay 800 something.
$800 a year, plus we pay LACSD. And so I think a lot of us are afraid that this will appear on our tax bill. You have no recourse. What are you going to do? And I've gone to Wawa to see what this is all about, and it's just chasing my tail. I get no answers. They say it's an overlay. I don't know what that means. Certain people, if you look at your taxes, you might see, oh, Wawa, what are they?
We live up close to Grandview School and our area of the elementary system. That's what they have.
Crystal, should we help inform, or is there a way that we can help have an actual meeting with regards, so that people can actually write down the questions and answers and then have a discussion? What would you like to do? Because obviously you see that there's a need, and there's a lot of people here who are interested.
I think here's the thing, at least I'm understanding, AWAC as an organization has issues already that were put, in regards to the bill, the community doesn't want. I have talked with Sid, I have talked to Councilman LACSD after the meeting, because I heard what people said, and I agree.
To address which part?
To address how we understand that for registered, this is in a partnership, LACSD board would take over AWAC. They would make the decision. There would no longer be a second holder. It would be the board of LACSD. Those few board members are voted in general election by registered voters in San Bernardino County. It's not the woods. It's not the 9,000 plus 9 o'clock. It's just an overall vote. So those people would basically have the decision making for, I understand it, and unless I misunderstand it, but I'm concerned about it. There's a lot of explanatory, but there's a lot of issues still. But a lot of it is LA and the words ever over. That would ever happen. So we're not pursuing it. But in the future, 5 years from now, it's going to happen.
Okay, so Crystal. Crystal? So Crystal? Crystal? No, that's okay, no worries. I just wanted to make sure that if there's any other clarifying language, because right now, as is, nothing's going to happen unless you folks will it to happen. So conversations don't happen unless you folks want to happen. Nothing's going to happen with this bill unless you folks decide, along with you, to have these conversations. So I'm going to put it on hold. I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen as far as
our board, which already have and really changes, but the members of our board change. Which we are bringing new people in. For some reason, there were new members who came along because of the bill. But the freedom that the bill didn't require an action tomorrow or in a month from now. That would act on it in 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those same powers that are concerned, I think, of the community, specifically that I heard at the last meeting, which are understandable, those would still exist within that bill.
okay, so amended or rescinded. So just as an FYI, let's look and let's continue. This is my commitment to you. We're going to have to do a follow-up conversation with you officially in the AWAC board to decide what you folks want to do. This is not my bill. I carried it on behalf of what I thought was the constituents, the residents of AWAC. That's what I did. I can have this.
Get rid of the bill.
If that is what you folks decide, and send me the letter. Yes. Oh, yeah, we have a gentleman in the very back. Sorry. And over here, and then so we're gonna take turns. Okay, so let me put a little pause really quick. Is there anybody else that wanted to hear about any other piece of legislation or what's going on in California, or express anything else? Because I know if you're not here for this, it's probably a very long and boring meeting for you. Okay, so let's go with that gentleman first, and then we'll go on to these ladies right here. So go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming today and letting our voice be heard. Ted Hayek has been a great community member, and I appreciate his work, but I'm not going to be quite as easy on him today. I believe as our representative.
Do you want to put your microphone a little closer to your mouth so I can hear you?
I believe as our representative, that you have an obligation to hear our voice, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm a counselor, and I'm a professional listener, and I'm listening very carefully to you today. I'm hearing a lot of resistance. I'm hearing a lot of resistance to repealing this bill. I believe that's one of two things. Either you're struggling to read the room, or you've received something from this. I don't know. There's a lot of money that's being exchanged. You're a realtor, you're a politician, and so I would like to offer an exercise of understanding here today. And I would like to ask if you would humor me and raise your hand if you believe that this should have never been a bill. Number two, Raise your hand if you believe that this bill should be repealed. Rescinded, thank you, rescinded. Not amended. I'm listening to that language very clearly. We want it rescinded. We don't want it amended. And I wanted you to hear that very clearly here today, because I'm not sure that that language was being reflected. So thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for expressing that. So as I mentioned prior to his comments, because we carried the bill on behalf of AWAC, please, we're going to continue the conversations. So we're going to continue the conversations with Crystal and AWAC with regards to what it is that you folks want to do, and then we'll move forward from that point on your behalf. As I said, we did not receive any opposition to the bill. My team was attending different meetings throughout the committee and expressing what the bill was. So this notion, and I want to get this clear through you, wasn't done under the table. You may feel that way, and I respect that. But because okay, so there were different ways that we tried to disseminate the information. It was never the intent to appear that it was done under the water. Never. It was never the intent to be able to do that. And I'm sorry you felt that way. We will have to figure out how to better communicate with Lake Arrowhead community members. But our intent, whenever there's a piece of legislation, we always talk to the representative from the different organizations that we work with on the legislation. In this case, our key contacts was directly with AWAC, just as an information. Also, the LACSD, because they were the ones who would be taking the responsibilities of code enforcement. So we will discuss that internally as to where we missed the boat and how we can best moving forward communicate with all the community members here so that you feel as part of the conversations. I commit to you on that front. Before I go to you, I had some ladies over here wanting to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, we have some clarifying questions. We're hearing a reference to realtors or a realtor board or an association, and I think the big question for transparency is who are those realtors and what board are we speaking of? Sure.
Do we have the letter? You don't have the letter? You were supposed to have somebody from the realtors here locally.
Well, we have two active boards here. We're associations. We have the RIM, and then we also have East Valley. I'm a very active.
It wasn't East Valley.
It was not East Valley, so it was RIM. Okay.
So, okay, hold up.
I believe I have a copy of that letter from their advisor at the president, right with that, the one you were talking to.
From the remote filters? You do? Okay, how can we get?
They didn't have anything that you're providing that meant that the content of that letter.
Because I asked you.
I don't know, that's why I think, they're realtors too, it's real, I think they're curious as to.
I contacted East Valley this morning and asked if we had any official stance or information, and they were unaware of any of this.
No, I heard it in East Valley, Christian, I don't believe everything I hear, but.
legit or not. These people make burning mind of you. These people have said they have ballots, but they refuse to give the ballots to people to audit it. They told the draft that they audited already. They didn't have the ballots in 2010. These people are illegitimate to start with. How do you justify putting legitimacy to this? So somebody just up with burning mind to do something, then come up to a senator to endorse them, being an illegitimate entity. And you're just going forward with them and trying to pass a bill that these are legal? I don't know, maybe you should turn me to the district attorney's office.
So we actually had our staff, our team actually look into whether or not they had it valid, because that actually was brought into question when we had the Zoom meeting. So we actually did go back and investigate. We went back and asked, my alleged team actually went back and looked to see whether or not there was any credibility and validity with regards to the authority that they were exercising. And it is in fact in place, and they do have authority. And I will be more than happy if we can take this gentleman's number, name and number, and ask for another validity. How do we? Scott Terrell actually has the information as to how he confirmed that they do actually have in place the authority to act on behalf of the community. Yes, sir.
You say they have the authority, and they may very well, by law, by statute of limitations, the ability to challenge it, they may have the authority. But what this gentleman is referring to is there was a vote in 2010, supposedly of all the various lot owners, giving AWAC the authority, because in 2010, their authority expired. AWAC took the vote itself. It took a long time to get the vote, 4 or 5 years, and during that period of time, many of the people moved and no longer lived here. It counted the votes, and it counted the votes of persons, as it turned out, who'd been moved. The only way we know that is that 2 property owners obtained copies of votes with their tracts. When we reached out to AWAC had lost them or misplaced them. Now, this is a huge box in a small office. No, she will tell you she can't find them. We tried valiantly. Which raises great questions about authority, but their attorney takes a position you cannot challenge it. Too late. They pulled it off. That's the position of Mr. Worm, president of the board of LACSD. Now, the gentleman behind me, someone was talking about what the heck is that bill before law? One of the motivations of this, and remember you said that AWAC owns the water rights of the properties? That bill you see on is the supplemental water bill, which expires, you will have it in about 2 or 3 years. It expires in 2025, which means that LACSD will no longer be deriving money from that. And I know that because I was on the board of LACSD at the time that it went through. The supplemental water bill will expire coincidentally at the same time that we are going to be cut off from water from the Colorado River. What does that mean? That means LACSD needs money and needs water. They are now framing this deal as an acquisition. And LACSD has taken the position that it owns all of the well water rights under every property in the woods, which means that they can come in and drill on your property, or charge you for money if you try to drill and use the water. So part of the emphasis of this bill has nothing to do with heart. It has to do with money and water and power.
As I said, give us information and we'll do what you folks want to do. As I said, this is not my bill. This is supposed to be, believe it or not, whether you agree or not on this point or see it, because we were doing it on behalf of AWAC. It wasn't our, I mean, I would not have ever known that this was actually a need had not been brought to my attention. So, okay. Crystal, it was Cynthia Carley that originally got the letters of the realtors. Do you know which association she's with? I'm looking to see if I have her association. I don't have it on here. What's that? Rim of the World? Okay, so it's Cynthia Carley that actually originally went and reached out to me. She was the original contact from the realtors saying that they had heard the concerns with regards to, she no longer lives here, so that's why, one of the reasons why there's somebody that was supposed to be on her behalf, of the realtors here today, but if you're here, you probably don't want to speak right now. Somewhere up there. So we're going to go with this guy first.
My name is Darren Vartanian. Senator, I want to thank you for being here. Those that know me, I'm a heavy-duty, hardcore conservative Republican. So I'm going to put that out there. So I appreciate you being here, but in my humble opinion, I honestly think you were hoodwinked. You were told the facts. So I'm going to talk to you about two very simple concepts. One is due diligence, and the other one are these stakeholders that you speak of. The concept of due diligence, you're a realtor. Things need to get verified. People tell you things. You have to go investigate. You have to go look at things. One thing that we were told in the beginning was AWAC was insolvent. They needed help. They didn't have the manpower. LACSD was this great white horse that was going to come rescue them. Their latest tax returns, they had $265,000 that came in. The year before, AWAC. The year before was $216,000. So they make about $140,000 a year. So the money wasn't there. Even though they didn't file tax returns, they're a nonprofit public entity. They have to file nonprofit disclosures. That is how we found out how much money came in. We don't know where the money, how it got spent, but they had doubled the income to successfully send letters out to homeowners trying to get them on board. That didn't happen, and it wasn't because of the money. The money was there. The second thing is the concept of misrepresentation. What a lot of people are saying here is in 2010, the CCNRs were scheduled to expire. You're a realtor. The concept of record property owner, as a realtor, you know exactly what that means. You go to the county, you look on the records, you're going to see who's the owner. I'm the owner of my property right now because I'm the record property owner. In 2010, when they renewed their CCNRs, 6 years before, they were collecting signatures. So it took them 6 years. They started in 2005. They went around collecting signatures from homeowners. People voted yes. These people sold their homes, moved away. They're no longer the record property owners. In 2010, when they said that they had gathered the signatures, they included those as yes votes. Now here's the misrepresentation part. We found two ballots where the president of AWAC submitted yes votes, and he wasn't the owner of the properties in 2010. And the technology exists today now where I could go and check the signatures. I know exactly who the owner was in 2010. I looked at the signatures. The signature said Mickey Mouse, and the owner was Donald Duck. It's not legalese. I just looked at the signatures. So that's the misrepresentation that occurred in 2010. A lot of people here are making the argument, how does AWAC have the authority to extend their, to do all this when they lost it in 2010? This isn't legal. This is just math. We looked at the signatures and they didn't match. Okay, so that's the concept of due diligence. Now let's talk about the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? In my opinion, it's the 10,000 lot owners. They're the ones that pay property taxes. They have the mortgage. They pay the LACSD water bill. They are the stakeholders. You had two stakeholders approach you. Three stakeholders: LAFCO, AWAC, and LACSD. So two stakeholders. Initially, it was LACSD on behalf of AWAC. I don't think AWAC approached you. It was LACSD that approached you. AWAC approached you direct, the senator's office. Okay, regardless, two stakeholders approached you that said this is a wonderful thing. The community wants this. Everyone's on board, and please, make this happen. So, what does this bill have to do with it? money, power, and the water rights for Lake Arrowhead. That's what the LACSD wants. Power, right? Power. You said we have the right to choose, we have the right to vote. 70% of Arrowhead property owners, these are their second homes. They're not domiciled in Lake Arrowhead. I know they're going to be able to vote on this upcoming thing where say yes if you want LACSD to take over. But if LACSD does take over, the board members that are on LACSD's board, 70% of the people that live here have zero control. You can't vote for those board members. Out of those 5 board members, 3 of them control. And they're going to be able to call all the shots with no oversight. That's taxation without representation. You're asking me to give my CC&Rs to an entity that in the future, if they, piss me off, I have zero control over them. They're going to tell me to go pound sand. Because I don't, I'm not domiciled here. To run for the LACSD, I can't run for the board. I have to live here. I have to be domiciled in Lake Arrowhead. To run for the LACSD board, I have to be domiciled in Lake Arrowhead to vote for the LACSD board. Now, 7,000 homeowners are disenfranchised. They can't vote. They can't control the LACSD board. So, my final thought. You're giving a government entity contractual rights, which is unheard of. Even the Senate Governance and Finance Committee that did an opinion piece for you, back in 1989, there were 7 CSDs in all of California. They came to a consensus. They said, okay, we're going to let these guys keep their CC&Rs, but going forward, it makes absolutely no sense for a government entity to be in the business of private contractual rights. That's dangerous. And in our situation, it's super dangerous because there is no control of our LACSD. We can't vote for them. We can't run for them. So, I don't think you dug deep enough and you did your due diligence to see how AWAC's board is formed, how LACSD's board is formed. AWAC's board is a closed board. No one, we can't, on our Zoom meeting, you said you guys can petition, you guys can go join the AWAC board. That's not how it works. We have to send a letter to the executive director. She has to approve you. And the closed board of AWAC has to then approve you, again, to join the AWAC board. So it's a club. And we're not invited. Unfortunately.
So thank you for sharing that. So you'd imagine that you want the LACSD, who is elected, to have transparency in the opening boards. It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Crystal, but your board, they're volunteers? Appointed? They're appointed volunteers? Appointed by the board? Okay, so how does that work? Oh, Crystal. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Kind of like any city council who appoints a board member. So you do, folks. You all have a lot of issues. Let me just say, I'm not it. Just write me, just petition, because you folks were the sponsors. We carried on your behalf, which I thought represented all of you, but obviously not. But it's not hard. It really isn't hard. You just tell me formally, let me know, you know what, we've decided as a group, and then I don't think there's let's figure this out. We're gonna have to talk to council about how to do it, and we'll communicate with Crystal. Only because we carried it on the behalf of AWAC. Obviously, you folks feel disenfranchised that it didn't represent your voice on that issue. So let's not do the same thing over again on carrying a bill carrying another bill addressing the issue without figuring out first how do we give the authority. I will, if you guys are okay with having AWAC doing the formal letter requesting to rescind since they're the sponsor.
Whatever I can do, I'm not here to fight anybody, you know, I'm here to help, not harm.
So let's do that. I think we're all in agreement that you folks were not, you feel you were unrepresented by AWAC. They did not represent your best interests. So now today, let's commit to make sure that you get involved with the board, the current board, with Crystal, who's very brave to be here and speak on behalf of AWAC. So let's give her a big round of applause. Government is not easy, but when we work together to try to find consensus, it can be very effective. Everybody has to give and take a little bit as long as we remain civil, cordial, and respectful.
It's not your issue with the organization, is not the senator. That has nothing to do with the senator. That has to do with me, I guess, because I am living the organization, unfortunately. But that is not.
1, 2, 3, 4. So what?
Hello? Okay. That was exactly what I was going to ask for clarification of how these step process would work. Now, AWAC decided by their board, Crystal, did AWAC decide as a board to approach the senator to do this bill?
I am not someone who likes to speak without.
Okay, but the point I'm making is, if that was the process to begin the bill, then perhaps.
The way I understand it, prior executive director approached LACSD. The senator got involved in the bill through East Valley. But again, East Valley Association of Realtors, I told them to sponsor it, but then my being passed by LACSD.
Okay, but this organization, AWAC, was asking
The realtors, by the way, just clarification, the realtors did not come into play until last June, July, I think is when they came on board. Prior to that, I had no idea that the realtors were hoping or to help facilitate the communication. So the realtors did not come in on board until after the fact. It was actually after I decided to consider withdrawing the bill, because we had opposition. We had a Zoom meeting and trying to figure out going back and forth. I said to my team, let's pull the bill. It was at that once we informed the groups, carried it through the chamber, carried it through the executive director of AWAC at that time, that the word got out. And then that's when, what's the lady I just mentioned, reached out and stated that the realtors were discussing as a board to help facilitate that. So that's what happened. So just as an FYI, the realtors weren't sponsoring this bill. They did not come into being until I decided to withdraw, explained the concerns. They got a hold of it, came back and said, we'll take care of these, of the finances and making sure that everybody's reached out to, which is why I was very upset when I heard that a meeting had happened this recently, and that the realtors had not been involved here locally to make sure that every resident had been informed of the meeting. So that's where I was, that's where I had committed originally, that I would make sure that all the meetings took place so that people could be informed. So yes, Tam, go ahead.
All right, we're just trying to cut to the chase.
I can't answer that.
Okay, but if AWAC,
it wasn't the directors and rest of us on the board. The first time I talked to your office was at the end of January of this year.
but if AWAC is now saying that they do not want to proceed, then AWAC's board should write to the senator and say, we want to withdraw. Can you withdraw our section in 1405?
Well, what we'll do is, I don't know how the language will look like, but I know the intent of what you folks want. So that's what we're going to be working towards moving forward if I receive the formal.
We will work towards that, and I will publish it out through ALA emails I have from my personal email to make sure that I get to as many people as possible. I do have my website officially apparently coming out next week, but God knows because that speaks with me every week, but that still isn't the best part. I will put it on the front page of Mountain News. We created a Facebook page. I'm afraid to the
I believe you will.
Because
I believe you will.
you know, they should have no involvement in notifying the community. That is not their job. But I will put it out on ALAs. I will put it out there. I've already asked ALA if they'd be willing with their voting mechanisms that they have, because they have a large amount of members as we do, as we have shared, you know, jurisdictions. If they would put out a vote, see if people.
Why do we need a vote if your board is saying you don't want to proceed?
This was before the last meeting. This was when the information just started coming out in the community.
Okay.
It wasn't, yes.
Okay,
At
so
the
now we
last
can.
meeting, it was very transparent, very, very transparent.
Good, good. Okay.
And I'm happy to work with anybody here, and I do everything I can for you guys, and whatever they come very legal, we talk, or figure out exactly how to do it properly, and just have it done. I agree, and I will make sure to put that out there as best I can.
Great. Now, I have another subject I wanted to bring up, but should I wait till after everyone talks about this subject?
Related with SB 1405 right now?
Yeah, mine's SB 1405, and I also have another thing that I'll just speak to SB 1405.
Let's resolve the SB 1405 and make sure how we know we're going to be continuing on so that we can move on to the next subject. How's that? Does that work? All right, perfect.
I really want to make your life a lot simpler. The state should not be involved in this. I think that's what you should be hearing from everybody, is that they don't want the state involvement. They want to resolve this at the local level, now that everybody's aware of this. And I think that you need to concentrate on some of the other issues that I'd like to bring up in a later date, or later time.
Absolutely. And for the record, the reason the state got involved here originally was because the process of changing the powers could not happen without approval from the state. That's why we had to come on board on that end and make sure that we had the legal process by which it could happen. That's the only reason the state came in. It wasn't to make it happen, it was so that the process could happen if you folks decided for that to happen. Clarification. Yes, sir.
Yes, Senator, again, appreciate your time here. With all due deference to the Lake Arrowhead Architectural Committee, since this is already in legislation, my question to you is, why aren't you going directly to your constituents? You have the resources of your office. There's certainly data available as to identify the current property owners are. Why aren't you put it to a vote? One, in a democratic process, I'm hoping to support a democratic process. One owner, one vote, and get a real read on what the opinions of the homeowners are. I appreciate that there's a desire for the Arrowhead Woods Architectural Committee to kill the bill, and certainly I would like to see this personally. But it seems to me you're putting the middleman between you and the constituents that are being represented here, and the constituents that are being represented here. So,
So here's the thing. So when we have a bill, when we carry a bill, we have sponsors. It's not my original idea. We have sponsors of the bill, which means that they come with the idea for us to carry it on their behalf. We facilitate the process for that happening. That's how I came to be. When I look at the stakeholders, for instance, I did a bill that was sponsored myself. It had to do with inclusionary practices for children with disabilities. They were the sponsors. They represent all the families with children with disabilities within their scope, within their cohorts, right? So they are the ones that came and spoke to me about the bill, and I did the bill.
I understand the political process, Senator, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the sponsor should have been the homeowners of Lake Arrowhead community here in Arrowhead Woods. The idea that a realtor association, a profit-motivated organization, is in contact and representing, or that you thought they were representing the homeowners, I'm confounded by.
And let me explain the realtor part of it, because I'm more than happy to explain what it is. The realtors, the only thing that they wanted to address was the concerns that were expressed by the opposition, and I'll say this, some individuals right here, expressed the concern in one of our Zoom meetings that they did not feel that AWAC had the resources nor all of the information. They couldn't guarantee that they would have all of the information to reach all of the property owners. So this is where the realtors came in and says, we can help with that. We do real estate, we have access to property records, we have the resources to be able to facilitate that portion of the concerns that we're having.
Senator, your office has the same access to the same property records. I have access to those property records just by going on the county website. Why are you putting a realtor organization between your constituents and you? There's a bill in Senate. Whether you want to own it or not, your name is associated with it. You have to represent your constituents. You're putting people between you and your constituents inappropriately. I'm asking you, go directly to your constituents. If you don't understand the process how to do that, I offer my expertise as a chief information officer to show you how to do that. I'm hopeful that the good people that you have on your staff here have the capability to help you understand how to do that.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean that I don't have direct access to my constituents.
I'm suggesting you do. I'm suggesting you're not leveraging the ability. Why are you depending on a realtor organization to look up and understand who the Lake Arrowhead Woods property owners are? This is a simple process. I'm suggesting you execute a democratic process, one homeowner, one vote, go directly to the database that the county has that represents who the current owners are for the property, and survey them.
So let me clarify, because I think you have it misunderstood what the role and at what capacity and when the realtors wanted to come and help facilitate contacting the homeowners. We have the capacity to reach our constituents, by email, if it's by email that we need to, we have access to our, the realtors were going to help AWAC facilitate, not me, AWAC facilitate the information reaching out, not us. We're already outside. We've done our job in carrying the bill on behalf of AWAC, which was our responsibility. We did that so that conversations could happen. The concern was that moving forward, AWAC would not have the resources, money, to mail letters to every single 10,000 homeowners. That was the concern that was expressed. The realtors were willing to basically put that money out, use money from their, I don't know where they had access to, but they had access to the money that would then help.
Senator,
well, that's okay.
Senator, with deepest respect to you and your office, it seems to me you don't understand the process of connecting with your constituents. Why are you deferring to an entity, a realtor entity, to act on your behalf?
They're not acting on my behalf. They were not
funding the communication.
That was moving forward. They were addressing the issue was that I was going to hold back this bill because the concerns that were expressed. The realtor said, we can help facilitate those concerns. That's when they were going to, in partnership with AWAC. They weren't doing anything. The intent wasn't to be such, they were trying to be helpful. I don't understand why you think that they're doing something. From your tone, you're implying that they were doing something.
No, Senator, I'm implying that you're using resources outside of your office to connect with your constituents. If you haven't gotten the sense and tone from everybody here in this room today, do you believe that that was an effective process? Do you hear anybody saying that worked?
Yes.
The idea that you were using a profit entity that whether you thought they were being benevolent enough to form the connection between your constituents and you, that was an appropriate process, that was the right process to use. Do you really believe that worked?
First of all,
It's a simple question, yes or no, did it work?
Well, you're inferring that they helped me communicate with my constituents with regards to this bill. They did not. They did not help facilitate those communications, okay? They were committing to helping you folks receive the information. Nothing nefarious outside of that at all. Making sure that every single person, that there was enough postage, paper, whatever it may be, so that you folks, or not you, but AWAC could facilitate those communications with every homeowner. That's all they were willing to do. How that happened was in partnership with AWAC. That was it. That was the
Senator, I'm suggesting that.
Not accurate. None of that has any accuracy. Again, I run one of the biggest escrow companies up here. None of that's accurate. I know the realtors. I have not been in contact with either of the boards or received any information. Nor do we need them by giving them help us with mailing their postage. We can mail a post or other things. Why do they can't? And why is most builders don't like it? So I don't know why they do.
Once again, it doesn't matter because once again,
I know, but that's
you folks.
Selling bad information, right? This is what I'm up against right now. In the community, it's constantly going up against misinformation or piece of information that's not accurate. And so I just want to be clear. But I just want to be clear that none of that is accurate. It's just straight not accurate.
Yeah, so Senator, I'll surrender the mic over in that.
I just want honesty and just transparency to the community, and it's very, very hard for me to do that with you guys.
Senator, you have your representative right here. I would suggest that this is a better channel of connecting to these kinds of concerns than going through a third party. And with deepest respect, again, I understand that you thought that there was a facilitation process going on between the realtors and the Lake Arrowhead architectural community. I think the fault is believing that was an effective process to pursue.
And you have every right to believe that.
Well, I'm asking, do you believe it was an effective process? Based on what you're hearing here, it's a simple yes/no question. Do you think all the concerns that have been expressed here reflect that that was the right process to pursue? You're still connected with your constituents.
I think at the time when I heard the concerns and speaking to the stakeholders at place and realized how everybody wanted to collaborate and try to make sure that the process was as transparent and as accessible to every single homeowner, I believe that I did do what I thought was best at that time.
So I'm asking now, having the information and the input from this set community, would that be a process you still will pursue?
There's nothing for me to pursue.
Well, there is something, Senator, and I think what you've heard here today is the action that everybody here would like to pursue would be to have the bill rescinded.
Well, I think I already made the point that we're going to have AWAC. I think I've already made the point that AWAC is going to act with your permission. You folks are going to work with her to send a formal letter asking us to rescind or do whatever it is that you folks decide to do with the bill. I think I already communicated that.
So, Senator, will you reach back out? Will you take the obligation to reach back out to this community and formally inform us that you've rescinded the bill? Or do we have to monitor the Senate floor?
I think you can monitor, you have every right, and I actually educate all my community members on how to get a hold of that.
I'll inform them to do this.
Okay, perfect. So my duty would be to inform you as possible as we did originally with the bill, going to your local community meetings. That's how we were sharing the information prior to. Whether or not you attended those meetings and informed yourself, that's another area. But we also email people. If they're in our email base, we have your registered voter email address, we send that information out. I don't hide what I do. I try to be as transparent as I can with communications. My mama right here, sorry.
All right, we'll send
My
it out.
mama Latina.
I'm
Hold on, give me 1 second. Give me 1
Go ahead,
second.
Senator, finish your thought.
Moving forward, as I said and I mentioned, we did everything with as much transparency as we could. Moving forward, you folks have expressed your concerns. I have heard you. You, as you said, was just a sample. I'm hoping that moving forward, all of your residents will have been reached out to by mail, by postage, by whatever means you have possible to let them know how we're going to move forward. When this bill comes into play, if we do the follow-up bill, you folks asked to do that, and I get the request to do that and we'll follow through with the process. We'll continue to communicate versus our newsletters versus attending your local community meetings through our local town halls that I'm holding, that I was given permission to start doing last year by the Senate. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to communicate with AWAC and the opposition if they reach out to us. You continue to engage with us, we'll continue to engage with you as well. There's nothing holding us back, and I am not the kind of person that hides, as evident today here.
Senator, again, appreciate your time here. I'm simply asking you if you believe your connection was effective, because I believe in results. So you're hearing from the people here in this community that they were not informed, that they didn't get the information that you're suggesting, and all your openness was reached. That I would suggest re-examine the process.
And I think I mentioned earlier over there that we're going to reassess how we gotta hear, we gotta listen, people. I did, I mentioned that earlier, just FYI. Okay, I don't want to be redundant, but we've been here for 2 hours. I want to make sure that we're rushing through everything. I believe I saw her hand first, and now I'll go to you, sir.
Thank you. So as a lesson learned, can we collectively agree that when there's opposition, even if there's a few of us, I was on that Zoom where the realtors group was on as well, that property owners, voters will not be superseded by an organization like realtors or any other? And then second is, Crystal's still in the room. Are you committing for yourself and for AWAC that you will formally request the bill to be rescinded?
I'm formally committing that I will speak with our attorney.
Who also happens to be on the board of LACSD.
That is not our attorney, so you know I have that hearing, and that also posted up something on LACSD, so that AWAC attorney in regards to water rights, they don't know who our attorney is. It took me about 15 attorneys to have a hired attorney who worked with me without a conflict of interest, because someone represents somebody out here.
So Warren is not your attorney. Okay.
Someone may have represented cases of which we that, and other people can address it. He is not.
So he's your litigator, not your general counsel.
Zero connection with any other homeowner, representation, or anything in the community, which was impossible to find. I got denied by over 8,000 when I went out. But that is not, and nobody knows what it is, and nobody.
So I'm going to pause a little bit, just really quick, and I'm going to introduce Sid. If you haven't met Sid, I want him to describe where he attends, where he goes, because he's my eyes and ears. I'm traveling between Sacramento and my home, which is Yucaipa, between January and September. I fly out during committee season on Sunday nights, and I don't get home depending on when my committee meeting ends. Thursday nights, Thursday afternoons, Thursday nights. So I'm here only on Fridays, Saturdays, and then I go back on Sundays. And I try to leave at least one weekend out of the month for my family, because I'm still married. I hope my husband still keeps me after all this. And I do still have a son who's 17 at home who is now officially senior. I think I mentioned that earlier today. So having said that, my time in the district is very, very limited. So my team, which I'm going to take a moment to introduce to you today, I have 12 people in the district? 11? Okay, 11. 11 now. We're fully staffed, which we haven't been before. We're fully staffed. All of my, we have 28 cities and communities that we represent. As I mentioned earlier, 1,226,000 people that I represent. I tried, as I said earlier today, to get it to as many communities as possible. We try to schedule these town halls as quickly as possible because I know we have a lot of concerns. And I was actually looking forward to scheduling this one. I had to postpone it. I forget for what reason I had to postpone the original meeting on this end for this particular city. And my next opening was actually not till August. And I said to my scheduler, just so you know, this is how special you are and how important it was for me to be here today. I said, nope, that's too far ahead. I said, find another weekend, cancel whatever we need to do. She goes, well, we have the weekend where we're saving you for your family, which was this weekend. And I said, take it off. I said, we'll schedule it this Saturday. This is how committed I am to representing you in the best way possible, the most transparent way. I hope you know that from today. So at this time, I want to take an opportunity to introduce Sid. Sid actually represents me in this. His charge is geographically, this area is like Arrowhead. And I want him to inform you of where he goes and what he attends, where he represents my legislation and talks about the issues that are impacting my legislation to you. So give me 1 second. I'm going to introduce Sid. Sid, here you go.
Thank you, ma'am. So there's two places that I really get the ability to provide legislative updates. The first is at the Chamber. The Chamber has a government review committee meeting, and that's public. And I've spoken to many of you personally. Many of you have my phone number. Please don't dox it. And the second place is going to be at the Municipal Advisory Committee meeting. So MAC meetings, those are hosted by the county. There's a Lake Arrowhead MAC meeting, and there's a Crest Forest MAC meeting. During last year, when it was the legislative process, I updated on the process of this bill and try to provide as much information as I could regarding the bill, which is when we got people who reached out to us and said, hey, we'd like to meet. And then we had plenty of meetings. If there's any recommendations of other places where I could provide those legislative updates, please reach out to me. I'm pretty sure I've given everyone my card by now. But that's what I do, and that's where I provide those updates. So whenever I receive an update on our meetings with AWAC, LACSD, or the process or whatnot, that's my opportunity to share that with the public. Other than that, I'm not familiar with any other committees or forums where I get to provide these legislative updates. So I'm always open to more suggestions to keep you guys in the loop as well. And then also our subscriber list, if you guys are part of our e-blast, we always provide updates on that as well. So I can recommend anyone that sign up for that as well. So if you have any questions, I'll probably be here for the next couple hours. Ted? Yes, sir. Do you want that mic?
Best and Krieger, the law firm that drafted this bill at the request of LACSD, is going to do everything in the world to stop the request from the AWAC, because LACSD has a vested interest in this going through. They will have meetings and meetings and meetings, and it will die in meetings. So therefore, I'm suggesting the alternatives are an additional solution. I will draft a proposed bill that simply says SB1405 is hereby rescinded, or reversed, whatever you want to call it, and submitted. And then you can have a community hearing on that, and I guarantee you're going to have a lot of people that say yes.
For the sponsors, that's what AWAC and you guys can organize that. One other thing, give me 1 second, really quick. Another thing that I wanted to make sure, because I know we're talking about transparency, how to reach people and everything. Listen, we tried our best to reach you, but you have to do an effort to also help us be able to reach you as well. It's a two-way. I'm not going to know you exist unless you let me know you exist. So I also want to introduce you to my district director. I have a chief of staff in Sacramento. This is my district director, and my district director is actually oversees all of my field representatives in the district. He oversees all of the issues, and whenever I have a concern or I'm communicated directly about an issue within my communities, this is my go-to man. And one thing I have to tell you, I have an amazing team. I have hired people that are not political. I've hired people who have hearts of service, because I believe in servant leadership. My members, my team reflect my values. And so if there's any other issues that we can help you with as far as state agencies go, which our purview and what we can help you with, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, because we have direct contact with those agencies. So if you have delayed in communication, you're not hearing back, you're waiting too long to get a response, try reaching out to our office and giving us a shot to help you facilitate those communications, to help them expedite the process of whatever you are dealing with any of the state agencies. So please feel free to use us as a resource in that capacity. And now,